2. In section 2, we're going to talk about the idea of standard deviations. First of all, it is just describing how data are dispersed in a population. One standard deviation in IQ test is just 15 points. I guess you are familiar with the idea of a standard deviation. After each test, I'm actually making a video talking to you about the class average, about the test result. For example, in test 1, the standard deviation was high, which means we had some people with 100, but we had some people with 20% out of 100, which means that students' grade were not really close to each other's. It was just kind of different. However, in test 2, the standard deviation was low, which means like almost everybody got a grade close to the average. This is like the whole idea of a standard deviation, deviating from the mean. Any score between one standard deviation above and below the mean is considered to be an average IQ score. An average IQ score is just 100. So one standard deviation below gonna be minus 15, which means 85. 115, one standard deviation above gonna be 115, above the average, which is 100. So an average population gonna have an IQ score between 85 to 115. For example, if your IQ score is 112, you are in the average population. Same goes for an IQ score of 87. Again, they're gonna be in the average population. Here you have like a good graph to just understand the whole idea. You can see that 85 until 115 is just here. So anyone with a score between 85 to 115 gonna be an average IQ score. However, we have like some people more than 130 and less than 70. They are, more than 130 gonna be gifted. Less than 70 gonna be people with intellectual disabilities, and they do need some help. I do have some questions for you. I know that there are some people out there, they do believe that IQ scores, they are not fair, they are not valid, because like you cannot put a number on human capabilities. I want you to actually read the chapter, read the textbook, and try to address these questions because they are important. But let's move on, talk about Sternberg's theory. It is triarchic theory of intelligence. It's just saying that intelligence, it has 3 different majors. We have practical intelligence, which is just common sense. We have creative intelligence, the ability of problem solving and being creative. For example, if you would do some very great job in your final project, you probably have higher creative intelligence. Then we have analytical intelligence, which is like academic problem solving and computation. Oh, here just another picture. Try to understand that. There are going to be some examples in your book. Go for that. Then we have multiple intelligence theory by Gardner. I'm a big fan of that because I believe that almost everyone is genius in at least one aspect. Here you can see different aspects of that, linguistic, musical, spatial, interpersonal, and intrapersonal, which is basically about the ability of communicating your ideas either with yourself or with other people. These two can be combined and called emotional intelligence, which is so important, especially in these days, because our interaction nowadays is just all about being smart and sensitive to each others and try to communicate our idea in the best way possible. So they are so important. But back to Gardner, Gardner believed that every human being, they do have different sort of intelligence, at least 8. And like people can be genius in one area and not that much advanced in another. And that is fine, which I'm agree with that, honestly. So we already talked about emotional intelligence. It is just the ability of understanding emotion of yourself, first of all, then others, and showing empathy, understanding social relationship and cues, managing your emotion, and being appropriate in your culture and in your society. Measuring intelligence, it is very important. I guess you are kind of familiar with Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, WAIS. Um, I guess some of you guys might actually took this test before. I don't know, maybe in your high school, but in my country, we had to just be evaluated based on our verbal and nonverbal skills. It was actually very important. I bet it is important here as well. It can actually help you a lot to just evaluate people and measure their ability of like verbal and nonverbal communication. There is another version, this is for children, which actually called Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, or WISC-5. It is just one of the many various tests for children these days, depending on the task, like depending on the criteria, you can test children in different ways, and this is one of them. For example, with WISC-5, you can actually test children for verbal comprehension, visual, spatial, fluid reasoning, working memory, and processing speed. I will suggest you to just check the textbook about this, because I feel like your textbook did a great job explaining all that, and there are going to be some questions in your test as well with respect to this test.